I should have known, but this totally caught me off guard. In Hyperlight Drifter, you explore locked-up dungeons that circle a town of upgrade shops and minigames. There's this sacred symbol everywhere made out of geometric shapes, and you have this bush that looks like this bush. All the signs are there. Hyperlight Drifter is Zelda, oh my god! Which really shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone following the Kickstarter. Zelda's influence was revealed long ago several times, but I only knew this game by its pretty screenshots, so that was a nice treat to discover. For whatever reason, there's never really been a huge glut of Zelda clones hitting the market, so it's not like Zelda fans are spoiled for a choice of indie games. And like any good whatever clone, Hyperlight Drifter is by no means just a Zelda clone. Instead, imagine Zelda with dash-heavy, fast-paced DMC hack-and-slash combat. Combat that has a Dark Souls amount of lethality behind every hit. That sounds great, right? Unfortunately, the one missing ingredient from this recipe for success is polish. The best of the best action adventures that Hyperlight is aspiring towards have dungeons full of smart and subtle visual cues and smooth routing. The best character action games make a priority out of locking the frame rate sky high, and the FromSoft Souls games have obsessively detailed animation timings for everyone's moves, and unfortunately Hyperlight Drifter just does not have that element of polish to it. The collision detection isn't the greatest. Sometimes scripted enemies won't jump into a room they're supposed to jump into. My first run ended with a black screen that required me to restart the whole game, but believe it or not, the worst offender is the frame rate. Game Maker Studio was an unfortunate choice of engine that locked the developer's chosen frame rate down to a mere 30. A problem that arises in two areas. First is how the game interpolates camera movement, and second is how it interprets player inputs. A 30 FPS lock is something that you may remember from a lot of other pixel art games made in Game Maker. The tools just don't make it easy to adjust frame timings with pixel art. But unlike most games locked at 30, Hyperlight's combat is fast and hits hard. Low frame rates aren't as forgivable here since it's all about inputting a dodge without iframes with precision timing, and the low frame rate plus a big issue with new areas giving me an FPS spike had me feeling like I was missing a lot of split-second opportunities to avoid hits. This frame rate complaint isn't about the image looking pretty or the quality of the animations, both aspects which Hyperlight excels at. Instead, this is an issue that's harder to convey in video than it is to just pick up a controller and feel what I'm talking about. So try to visualize. The issue is about simple playability. It's about having less frames to spot the split-second moment where a dash or a slash can be followed up into a second one. It's about your eyes missing an errant projectile heading your way and leaving you asking, what even just killed me? It's about just a slight slowdown, just a 3 FPS dip, absolutely ruining the rhythm of your muscle memory. You'll end up hitting inputs with the same timing and flow as you've been taught, but inexplicably not getting the usual results. In other 30 FPS games, this is barely an issue, but Hyperlight Drifter is fast enough and difficult enough to demand a degree of precision that its technology just can't keep up with. If you ever hear anyone say that this game is harder than it needs to be, keep that in mind, which is unfortunate because I actually enjoyed the level of challenge this game presents. And when combat works, it is a beautiful dance of your little ninja making all that gorgeous pixel animation go to work. The difference between a quick death and gracefully sliding through a fight without getting touched at all boils down to awareness. Quick reflexes and caution are both rewarded, but disaster is always just one wrong button press away. There's so much to love here, but it's so unpolished that I was really going back and forth on this one. I couldn't decide if I liked it or not. The combat's great when it works, and a few days after launch a patch improved performance and supposedly fixed that black screen issue. The core process of uncovering the dungeons is satisfying, and so is figuring out just what the hell's going on. The game's telling its story without any words that aren't tutorial text, which has the player inventing their own vocabulary and interpretations for what are really standard Zelda game archetypes. However, Hyperlight does have its own little twists, one of which is that character upgrades are all sold in town from the beginning of the game. Since the puzzles and bosses aren't dependent on upgrades hidden inside the dungeons, you can do them in whatever order you want, and fast travel back and forth between them as you progress through them, though there is a bit of signposting going on to steer you in the right way. In other words, you gotta wake up and pay attention, just like in the combat. You gotta feel around for secrets and make a good mental map of where you've been and where you wanna be. Though this is a Zelda-like experience, it's a hell of a lot harder, both to read and to play. And from that challenge, and the beautiful places and satisfying combat unlocked as your reward, comes a feeling of real satisfaction for doing well, eventually leading to you doing it all over for a new game plus, which, more than anything else, seems to just lower your health to 2 hearts, which is really bad for experimenting with the tricky, janky perspective jumps this game wants you to do. Doing it over again also revealed just why I might have started out so harshly on this game in the first place. Because it doesn't begin well. It starts with the ambiguity of struggling to figure this all out without any words before the universal languages of combat and locked doors ease you in. Then the game's signposting steers you towards what I think is supposed to be the first dungeon, but I'm reluctant to assume that because it is by far the hardest. Why the hell would they start you out in this game's equivalent of the Water Temple? This place is an amalgamation of a confusing self-looping layout, enemies who overwhelm the screen with projectiles, and a map deliberately designed to mislead you. And the music's really mismatched too. These swampy ruins are riddled with the flayed, eviscerated corpses of the innocent, and this is the music they picked for that. It's weird because the other dungeons didn't have those problems at all. They were pretty fun to go through and their music was great. So as cool of an idea and a concept Hyperlight Drifter may have been, it's hard to specify exactly how polish was the missing ingredient of what should have been a winning formula. I feel like there's a few extra steps here that should have been taken, but going the length of just one of them might have pushed it into the next level. That could mean something structural, like building it in a different engine to hit those 60 FPS. It could have meant a redesign of the first dungeon, or simply displaying room borders and a moving player icon on the map. Maybe it needed more features. After 9 hours, Hyperlight's bag of tricks starts to look small. The novelty of uncovering secrets hidden in the background wears off by the time hugging every single wall in the game becomes standard operating procedure. Maybe what it needed was a fundamental change to the game's entire storytelling concept. Without any words, there's not a lot of room to easily develop really charming, likable characters. Maybe that's why everything feels a bit static in this game. Everyone and everything looks electronic and acts so lifeless that it's hard for this game to drum up the same sense of wonder and adventure that Zelda did. Slowly scrolling our view up some tall rectangular monoliths as post-rock mogwai rumbles in the background just isn't enough anymore. There's gotta be more that goes into the artistry of world building these days, right? So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, Hyperlight Drifter is the Hidden Valley Light Ranch of video games. It's effective, but unrefined. It's good, but not great. It can be pretty to look at, but the basic formula lacks texture, detail, and coloring. It's better in small doses, which is when it hits hardest, and it can make veggies tastier. Yo, if you ever play this game, don't follow the dog and do the East Dungeon first. You'll probably like it way more than me that way. Do the North one, that's the good one.